again. I'm sorry I'm ripping you away from the arena. There's a rager going on right now, 75-75, BYU and Iowa State. As we sit here, Colorado, the story of the tournament so far, Royden, I think that ends today because Houston is the most ridiculously locked-in team that you can imagine. They just don't have bad nights. Like they don't have bad nights, they don't have off nights. They just have different levels of good. Like, okay, tonight was good. Tonight was really good. Tonight was great. Like that's it. Like a good night for them is like, hey, guys, we got to get back to at least really good. Great just doesn't come along. But really good is our standard. Good is not good enough. And bad, they don't even know it. They have no idea what it means. No idea what it means. And they play Colorado today. But what's the buzz been around the tournament about Houston, about teams like that? Tech plays for the first time today against Baylor. Kansas had just a nail biter last night. So what's the buzz around the Big 12 tournament?
It's funny because it's like you go to the stadium to cover your one game, and then you have the afterglow of whatever game came before it. But so if you're singular focused like you kind of are for me covering Baylor, it's like the focus on that team, and then you follow the storylines there. Like I don't think people are very happy, or just tangentially from what I've seen online with Tang's performance and K-State out of there, especially because man, the Kansas and Iowa State folks, it's right here. They travel to this thing. So it's full of Kansas State fans. It might as well have been a home game basically for Kansas State. So I don't know if they were super happy with that performance last night, but Baylor, quite frankly, looked rested and took it to them last. And I think a lot of people are talking about just how many, and this is any tournament, but just how many games in a row that you have to play too in as many days. So you better try and get a top 4 seed in this thing. Otherwise it's like Baylor's going to have, regardless of if they win or not, like still an uphill battle tonight to continue advancing. They're going to have to play 4 games in 4 days. Scott Drew talked about that. I think like really this is sort of Houston's to lose. I wasn't at the stadium last night when Kansas quite frankly nearly choked that one away to UCF and almost wanted to lose that game. And I was going to ask you about it, like how is your wife feeling about all of this? But it was I wish I was at the stadium for that, because there had to have been people sitting on their hands in that stadium, and then probably not a lot of good vibes going into, even though they're going to, Arizona travels, but they're going to outpace Arizona in this stadium. What 3-1?
Yeah.
So I think people around the Kansas team, even though they're a lock to get into the tournament, are a little apprehensive about where their standing is. Weird things happen in this tournament every year. I mean, right now BYU is up against Iowa State, and Iowa State comes in and wrecks shop in this tournament almost every year, it feels like.
Yeah.
But the idea that maybe Kansas or Iowa State won't win this thing for the first time like ever. If you look back in the tournament, Kansas has basically won in 25 seasons of this tournament. Kansas has won 12 of them. Iowa State has won, I think, 6. So they basically won the vast majority of these tournaments. I think there's some Oklahoma sprinkled in there as well. But the fact that Iowa State or Kansas may not be able to pull away with this thing, I think is going to be the big talk of the town. And I'm just interested to see Houston play in this thing. It's not like they're never not ready to go, but what are they playing for? They're going to be a number 1 seed. Yeah. Like we're in the NCAA tournament. Maybe they just get to have the unique distinction of we just literally wreck shop across this entire conference. The worst game that I think I've seen them play was that one against Baylor last Saturday night late, and they still came away and just kind of ran away with the second half and locked down Baylor on defense. So I'll be interested to see if anybody can even stay with them.
By the way, so here's how it goes down for anybody who wants to know. Kansas, Iowa State. Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Kansas, Mizzou, Kansas, Mizzou, Kansas, Iowa State, Iowa State, Kansas, Iowa State, Kansas, Iowa State, Texas, Kansas, Texas, Iowa State.
Yeah.
So it's not like, there's not a lot of teams that have won this thing. So
yeah. And I'm watching the broadcast right now. It's just like BYU. I saw a lot of BYU fans out and about today. Like they like to travel, but like Iowa State is in there deep.
So hold on, let me count this up. 1, 2, 3. Four, 5, 6, 7. 7 of the 25 titles are in another conference now.
Yeah.
So if you take out all of those, the only current Big 12 team other than Iowa State and Kansas that has won this thing is Oklahoma State twice.
Yeah, like I said, this thing doesn't have much parity, and Scott Drew has been sort of it's as mad as I see Scott Drew get when he has to talk about this tournament. Like he is so frustrated with having – and look, Iowa State, Kansas, and Kansas State fans are going to say cry me a river. But like because they play the Big 12 championship football game in Dallas. Yeah. So whatever. But like he is the most I'm trying to look for the word, but it's really the most frustrated he gets when he talks about this tournament, because he's like, it's just simply a home game for these top teams, really. And especially when Kansas is good, I think it's extra frustrating. And look, this is the first time that Kansas, quote unquote, hasn't been good in 20 years. So yeah, no, it like, and the thing is their bad is still good by most team standards. They have 21 wins on the season. Yeah. They're just not elite like they have been. And it's shocking because they're preseason number 1, given what they brought in. But Rylan Griffin's been hot and cold. AJ Storr didn't do anything until last night, really. I mean, he was a big part of the game last night. And that was, like you said, people sitting on their hands in the arena. I can tell you there was one sitting on her hands on the couch at my house last night. Here's how it was. She didn't want it on the TV, and so I was just playing video games, and I was checking the score, and I kind of stopped for a couple minutes, and I was like, hey, and she goes, I don't want to talk to you right now. I was like, oh, this is not going well. And she was nervous about it because they've beaten them twice already. So beating them 3 times is just hard. And UCF, in particular, beating a team 3 times, especially a team that can benefit from this. Kansas is not like winning this might move them up a line, but nothing's changing. For Kansas, for Baylor, nothing's really changing about where they're going. Tech might move them up a line. Iowa State. I mean, really, I think the tournament for the teams in the Big 12 that are going to the dance doesn't really mean much this particular year. Well, especially starting today. Yeah, Baylor needed to win last night. If they would have lost last night, then it gets a little hairy for them. And I think people start to make the case that maybe they can keep them out. And Scott Drew talked about that as much last night. And this is the most kind of like frustrated, quote unquote, that I've seen him be, where he talked about bubble watch and stuff last night, where he said, people start to worry about it. And then they went in there and, quite frankly, beat the brakes off of Kansas State. And it kind of was like, okay, well, this team is obviously good and just hasn't really played up to whatever potential that we set for them at the beginning of the season. So, but I will say for them, if they somehow go on a miracle run, like VJ Edgecombe loses his mind and goes off in 3 rounds of this tournament, they get to the championship game or heck, win the thing, then I think actually it would benefit them the most. BYU maybe would go up a little bit, but like all of a sudden you're looking at a 18-19 win Baylor team to a 20 1-win Baylor team. So I think they would stand to benefit from it the most. Would that bump them up to I don't know, from an 8 seed to a 6 seed or something like that? I'm not sure. But I kind of feel like you're right. For the top teams, Texas Tech, Arizona, and Houston, I'm not quite sure what this does to move them up any.
Yeah, I mean, Houston to me should be a 1 seed. They may wind up being a 2 seed because there's just a lot at the top. But, I mean, Cooper Flagg not being for Duke, maybe not being available. I wonder what that –
Well, they're going to use – are they going to use the Jordan Travis thing on them, or are they going to keep them out of the tournament?
Yeah, I don't
if he can't go, man, what are we talking about? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, they don't do that in basketball, but he hurt his ankle. He walked off.
He was helped off, and they put him in a wheelchair, and then he walked back onto the court. I think. Yeah. I'm not quite sure. Not quite sure what happened with, but that Duke team is so obviously loaded. I was looking at draft stuff today, and it's something like they had 3 players. Well, obviously with Flagg going first, but they had 3 players from that Duke team in the top 8 of their mock draft. So I think they'll be okay for the time being until they can get him back. But they also had another player go out with a shoulder injury. So I think they were something like. The ACC is weird because the ACC is really only going to have like 3 or 4 locks for the tournament. And somebody said the best way that you can describe the ACC this year is that Duke, the number 1 seed, who is clear and above everybody else, was a 22-point favorite against the 8 seed today in their conference tournament. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so they, I don't think they're going to do that, but we'll see, I guess. I mean, I guess you could move somebody down the line if you think Cooper Flagg's going to be out long term.
They won't do it. There's no like historical precedent for them doing that.
No, and it's also Duke.
Yeah, right.
Like it's Duke. Like it almost like if they tried, like somebody would just some guy would come out from nowhere and be like, sir. I am here to represent the Duke Blue Devils and, of course, all the Blue Bloods in the tournament. Listen, we understand that there are years where you move them off the one line, but 1 injury for the Duke Blue Devils does not a tournament make. So unless you'd like to hear from our aforementioned attorneys, I suggest you reconcile this terrible misstep, and I'm sure it was just an error on your part. Go back in your little room and talk to your people and come back out again when Houston's a 2 seed.
I said good day, sir.
Yeah. Oh, off with you. There you go. No. Yes.
The bevy of lawyers from Duke Law School will be in that.
I guess I shouldn't have made him British. I should have made him like Jason Isaacs on the White Lotus.
Well, I do say, sir.
Yeah. Listen, I'm Durham. Here in Durham, we don't tolerate malfeasance and recklessness.
Yeah, that's about accurate.
Yeah. Have you seen this season's White Lotus? Are you a White Lotus guy?
I did the first season of White Lotus. My wife and I did. We tried to start watching the second season, and I kind of just realized that I'm just not up for passive aggressive television.
Yeah, it's true. Look, so my wife does this thing. Let me get this off my chest. She does this thing where her friends will start talking about a series or a movie or something like the new Frasier. And then she wants to watch the new one before the old one. And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And we are watching, I watched the first season of The White Lotus. And then I said, hey, we should watch you would like it. Let's watch The White Lotus. And when the second season came out, we never got around to it. Then one of her friends said, oh, this third season of The White Lotus is great. You got to watch it. She's like, do I have to watch the first 2 seasons to get it? And she's like, no, not really, but there's a couple of recurring things that, but you can go back and watch. So then we skipped season 2. She's never seen season 1. And we're watching this third season. And I told her tonight, I'm like, I'm doing this for you, but you have to understand that this is not how things are done. We watch things in the sequence of the plot as how they happen. We don't just pick up a book and start on chapter 9. We don't do that. It's not done. This isn't Star Wars where you can create an order that there's a timeline that flows through. That's unique. That's it. You know,
I with that show, it's like specifically vibes though too. If you miss one season of kind of what they're going for, and he tries to the passive aggressive stuff continues throughout, and like I forget what it's called, but yeah, the microaggressions is sort of the theme of the entire show. And so if you miss one season of that, I don't think it's going to derail the entire thing, but you really got to pick up on like what they're doing if you have a good solid base. So if you skip a full season, you may be like, wait, why are all these people the worst? You know? I don't know.
That's the other thing about it. There's like one or two characters that you're like, oh, I really hope that it works out for them. And they're the ones getting just dumped on the whole season. So you root for them, but mostly you're like, man, these people have problems. But Jason Isaacs, who is quite British, as you know, plays this guy from Durham. He's there with his family. And his North Carolina accent is on point. People
have said like, either people hate it or people are like, that's actually pretty accurate. And I think
people who hate it don't know. They don't know. It's on like, I've not spent a lot of time up there at all. Like I've never been to Durham, but I know a lot of people from North Carolina. You know, I've met them. And my dad, when I was growing up, my dad's company region included North Carolina. So when we would have like these family meetings, we would, go and hang out with these people, and that's exactly what they sounded like. And I was like, how, maybe there's not an actor, and obviously maybe not one to Jason Isaacs' caliber that can do this, but this guy who is British and very he's like a distinguished Brit. His accent's very... I mean,
he's part of the Harry Potter cast.
Yeah, exactly. He's part of the Harry Potter, and he's just nailing it like he lived there his whole life. It's crazy. Like the way he's his phone. I can't. Yeah.
There's nothing worse than when people try to do a bad Texas accent as well too. So I would be probably remiss if I was just like, ugh. But
no, but it's good.
If you really nail good. It's really cool to see. But it's always like British actors that end up doing the accents too.
Yeah, that are better. Yeah. I don't know. I guess maybe they have an ear for it more than Americans do. Yeah, but because they America, we hear British and we kind of all lump it together. And it's like, no, I mean, if you're from here, it's like, this is like America. You're from Texas, it sounds like this. You're from Georgia, it sounds like this. And,
the only good is Robert Downey Jr. and Sherlock Holmes. And that's just the most.
Yeah. Like anytime, it doesn't really go well the other way, although I do there are a lot of, British or Australian actors that you can hear doing the American accent, and this is really the only way that they can say it.
The Californians,
listen, Jeremy, that kind of thing. That's how they're all right, well, I've been cast and I'm handsome and I'm strong, so I'm going to do this.
You'll have a nar slip out sometimes too.
Yeah, nar, nar.